Number 8. The Davis Divan is one of the strangest and most mysterious experiments ever attempted in the American automobile industry. Even among the many unusual vehicles that appeared during the chaotic years after the World War II, the Divan stood out immediately. Its unusual three-wheel layout, aircraft-inspired interior, and dramatic promises of efficiency made it seem like a glimpse of a futuristic automobile that never quite arrived. The project was created by entrepreneur Glenn Gordon Davis, a colorful and controversial figure who believed he could revolutionize transportation with a completely different type of automobile. Davis was not a traditional automotive engineer. Instead, he was a salesman and promoter who possessed enormous confidence and a talent for attracting attention. His vision was to build a vehicle that would be lighter, safer, and more economical than the large American sedans of the 1940s. At that time, most cars were heavy machines with powerful engines and large steel bodies. Davis believed a smaller, more efficient design could appeal to drivers who wanted better fuel economy and easier handling. The result was the unusual Davis Divan. Like some other experimental vehicles of the period, it used a three-wheel configuration. A single wheel at the front handled steering, while two wheels at the rear provided traction and support. From above, the layout looked almost triangular. However, the real surprise appeared inside the cabin. Instead of a normal driver's seat placed on the left or right side, the driver sat directly in the center of the car. The steering wheel was mounted in front of this central seat, giving the driver a perfect symmetrical view of the road ahead. Behind the driver, two passenger seats were positioned slightly farther back on each side. The arrangement looked remarkably similar to the seating layout used in some aircraft cockpits. This unusual configuration also gave the car its name. The word divan referred to the idea of a comfortable lounge-style seating arrangement. From the outside, the vehicle had smooth, rounded bodywork and a streamlined nose. The design suggested speed and modernity, reflecting the growing fascination with aerodynamics that was influencing many vehicles during the late 1940s. Davis made ambitious claims about the performance and efficiency of his new creation. He promised that the lightweight design would allow the car to achieve excellent fuel economy while still providing comfortable transportation for several passengers. He also suggested that the three-wheel layout would improve stability and safety. The bold marketing campaign attracted enormous curiosity. At one point, the company even established a factory and began hiring workers in preparation for large-scale production. Investors and potential customers were intrigued by the promise of a revolutionary American car. But behind the dramatic publicity, serious problems were beginning to appear. Building an entirely new automobile company requires massive financial resources, engineering expertise, and careful planning. Unfortunately, the Davis project struggled with all three. Production delays, design challenges, and financial mismanagement quickly created difficulties. Only a very small number of working vehicles were ever completed before the company's finances collapsed. Investigations and legal troubles soon followed, and the dream of mass production disappeared almost as quickly as it had appeared. Because production ended so abruptly, surviving examples of the Davis Divan are extraordinarily rare today. Historians estimate that only a handful of cars were ever built, making them some of the most unusual and valuable automotive curiosities from the era. Those who have seen one in person often remark on how futuristic the design still appears. The central driving position feels surprisingly modern, almost like certain high-performance sports cars developed decades later. One automotive historian once commented, "The Davis Divan looked like something from a science fiction future that never happened." In many ways, the story of the Davis Divan reflects a fascinating period in American automotive history. The years after the war were filled with ambitious inventors and dreamers who believed they could challenge the enormous power of established companies like Ford Motor Company or General Motors. Most of those dreams ultimately failed, but they produced some of the most imaginative vehicles ever conceived. Today, the Davis Divan survives mainly as a legend among collectors and historians. Whenever one appears at a museum or special exhibition, it attracts fascinated crowds who cannot believe such a strange machine was once proposed as the future of American transportation. It may not have succeeded as a production car, but the Divan remains a remarkable reminder of a time when bold ideas, unusual engineering, and a bit of wild ambition could still attempt to reshape the automotive world. Car.
Number 7. The King Midget Model 3 is one of the smallest and most charmingly unconventional vehicles ever produced in the United States. In a country famous for enormous chrome-covered sedans and powerful V8 engines, the existence of such a tiny and simple automobile almost feels like a contradiction. Yet, for a brief moment in the mid-20th century, this miniature machine managed to carve out its own peculiar place in American automotive history. The origins of the little car trace back to the ambitions of two inventive men, Claudius V. Newman and Dale Orcutt. During the 1940s, they began experimenting with the idea of creating an ultra-affordable automobile that almost anyone could own. At the time, even basic cars were expensive purchases for many families, and the two inventors believed that a radically simplified vehicle might provide transportation for people who could not afford conventional automobiles built by companies such as Ford Motor Company or General Motors. Their company, King Midget Motors, embraced a philosophy of extreme simplicity. Instead of designing a complex automobile with dozens of sophisticated systems, they built a vehicle that stripped transportation down to its most basic elements. The result eventually evolved into the most developed version of the car, the unusual King Midget Model 3. From the outside, the car looked incredibly small compared with typical American vehicles of the era. The body was compact and upright, with tiny wheels tucked beneath simple fenders. In photographs, the car almost appears like a child's pedal car that somehow grew an engine and license plates. Under the hood was a remarkably small engine. Instead of a large multi-cylinder power plant, the vehicle used a tiny single-cylinder engine similar to those found in lawn equipment or small industrial machinery. While the engine produced very little horsepower, the car itself weighed so little that it could still move along at modest speeds. Because of this lightweight construction, fuel consumption was extremely low. At a time when fuel economy was becoming more important for some buyers, this tiny vehicle could travel surprisingly far on very little gasoline. The simplicity of the design extended to nearly every component. Early versions of the King Midget were so basic that they did not include a traditional suspension system. Instead, the car relied largely on the flexibility of its tires and frame to absorb bumps in the road. This might sound primitive, but it helped reduce cost and mechanical complexity. Another unusual feature of the project was the way many cars were sold. Rather than shipping fully assembled vehicles to customers, the company offered some versions as kits. Buyers could receive the parts and assemble the car themselves at home. For people who enjoyed mechanical projects, this became part of the fun. Imagine opening a set of crates in your garage and gradually assembling your own working automobile piece by piece. For many hobbyists in the 1950s and 1960s, this idea was incredibly appealing. Despite the car's simplicity, thousands of examples were eventually produced. The little vehicles became especially popular among rural drivers, small-town residents, and hobbyists who appreciated the novelty of owning something so unusual. Owners quickly discovered that driving the King Midget Model 3 was a completely different experience compared to driving a conventional automobile. The tiny size made the car extremely easy to maneuver, and its light weight gave it a playful personality on the road. However, the small engine and minimal equipment meant the car was not designed for high-speed highway travel. It was best suited for short trips, quiet country roads, and relaxed cruising rather than long-distance driving. Many drivers remember the experience with humor and affection. One owner once described it perfectly. It didn't feel like driving a normal car at all. It felt more like sitting in a motorized go-kart that happened to be street legal. Another owner joked that parking was never a problem. You could almost park it sideways between two bigger cars, he laughed. Although the company never grew into a major automobile manufacturer, the little car achieved something important. It demonstrated that creative ideas and unconventional thinking could still produce a practical vehicle, even in an industry dominated by massive corporations. Today, the King Midget Model 3 has become a delightful curiosity among collectors. When one appears at a classic car show surrounded by enormous muscle cars and luxury sedans, the contrast is almost comical. The tiny machine looks like a miniature toy among giants. Yet, people often gather around it with smiles and curiosity. Its small size, simple construction, and playful spirit remind everyone that the history of the automobile is not only about speed, power, and luxury. Sometimes it is also about creativity, ingenuity, and the joy of building something small that simply works. And in that sense, the little King Midget truly lives up to its name.
Number 6. The Goggomobil Dart is one of the most unusual and eccentric sports cars ever created. At first glance, it looks like a tiny racing machine designed for a toy-sized track rather than real roads. Yet despite its miniature dimensions and unconventional design, the Dart represents a fascinating moment when creativity and improvisation produced one of the strangest sports cars in automotive history. The story begins with the German microcar manufacturer Glass, which produced a line of extremely small vehicles known as Goggomobiles during the 1950s. These cars were designed to provide simple, affordable transportation during the years when Europe was still recovering from the economic difficulties that followed the World War II. They were tiny, economical machines powered by small two-stroke engines that consumed very little fuel. Most Goggomobil models were practical little sedans or coupes, but in an unexpected twist, a strange sports car version appeared on the other side of the world. In Australia, entrepreneur and racing enthusiast Bill Buckle saw potential in the lightweight Goggomobil mechanical components. Instead of building another small commuter vehicle, he envisioned something much more playful, a tiny sports car that would be fun to drive and visually unforgettable. The result was the remarkable Goggomobil Dart. At first glance, the car looks like a miniature racing machine. Its body was made of lightweight fiberglass, which was still a relatively new material for automotive construction at the time. Fiberglass allowed designers to create smooth curves and dramatic shapes while keeping the car extremely light. The Dart had a low, sporty stance with flared fenders and a small open cockpit. Its proportions gave the impression of a scaled-down roadster, almost as if a full-size sports car had been shrunk in a machine. But the most astonishing feature was the way drivers entered the vehicle. Instead of using normal side doors, the entire roof and windshield assembly tilted forward as one piece. When opened, the front portion of the car lifted up like a canopy, allowing the driver to climb inside the cockpit. Once seated, the driver would pull the canopy back down and lock it into place. This unusual design made the car feel more like a small aircraft or racing prototype than a conventional road vehicle. It also helped keep the body strong and lightweight because large side doors were not required. Under the rear bodywork sat a tiny two-stroke engine supplied by Glass. Compared with the powerful engines found in traditional sports cars, this engine was extremely small. Instead of producing the deep roar of a performance machine, it produced a high-pitched buzzing sound similar to a motorcycle or small racing cart. Despite the modest power, the Dart's incredibly light weight gave it lively performance. With so little mass to move, the car could accelerate with surprising enthusiasm. On winding roads, it felt agile and playful, darting through corners with quick responses. Drivers often describe the experience as pure fun rather than serious performance driving. One owner once joked, "It sounded like a motorcycle and looked like a toy, but it could make you grin on every corner." Because the car was produced in extremely small numbers, it quickly became one of the rarest micro sports cars ever built. Only a limited run was completed, and many people outside Australia never even knew such a vehicle existed. Yet those who encountered one rarely forgot it. The tiny roadster's bright colors, unusual canopy entry system, and buzzing engine made it feel almost like a cartoon sports car that had somehow escaped into the real world. Over time, collectors and historians began to appreciate just how unusual the Goggomobil Dart truly was. In an era when most sports cars were becoming larger, more powerful, and more sophisticated, the Dart represented the opposite philosophy. It was small, simple, and playful. Today, surviving examples are incredibly rare and highly prized among collectors of unusual vehicles. Whenever one appears at a classic car show, it attracts curious crowds who cannot quite believe what they're seeing. People stare at the tiny body, the forward-tilting roof, and the miniature proportions that make it look almost unreal. The Dart stands as a reminder that not every sports car needs massive horsepower or luxurious engineering to become memorable. Sometimes the most unforgettable vehicles are the ones that dare to be completely different. And in the case of the Goggomobil Dart, that difference turned a tiny microcar platform into one of the strangest little sports machines ever built.
Number 5. The Bizzarrini Manta is one of the most radical and futuristic automobiles ever created. Even today, more than half a century after its debut, the car still looks as if it belongs in a science fiction film rather than on the streets of the late 1960s. With its extreme wedge-shaped body, enormous glass canopy, and unusual interior layout, the Manta represented a bold vision of what the future of high-performance cars might look like. The car was created through a collaboration between two fascinating figures in automotive history. The mechanical foundation came from the legendary Italian engineer Gito Bizzarrini, a man famous for his work on high-performance machines. Earlier in his career, Bizzarrini had helped engineer the legendary Ferrari 250 GTO while working for Ferrari, and later developed powerful sports cars under his own name. But the striking body of the Manta was designed by a young stylist who would later become one of the most influential automotive designers in history, Giorgetto Giugiaro. At the time, Giugiaro had just founded the design studio Ital Design, and the Manta became the very first car produced by the new company. From the moment people first saw the Bizzarrini Manta, it was clear that this was not an ordinary sports car. The body was shaped like a dramatic wedge, with a very low front end that seemed to slice through the air. The hood sloped sharply downward, while the roofline stretched far back toward the rear of the vehicle. One of the most striking features was the enormous windshield. Instead of stopping at the top of the dashboard like a normal windshield, the glass extended far up into the roof of the car, creating a massive transparent canopy. This design gave the driver a panoramic view of the road and made the entire vehicle look like a futuristic spacecraft. The dramatic styling was not just about appearance. During the late 1960s, designers were becoming increasingly interested in aerodynamics. The wedge shape helped reduce air resistance and suggested how future performance cars might be designed to cut through the air more efficiently. Inside the cabin, the car revealed another surprising innovation. Instead of placing the driver on one side of the vehicle, the cockpit used a central driving position. The driver sat directly in the middle of the cabin, with the steering wheel positioned perfectly in front of them. Behind the driver, two passenger seats were placed slightly farther back on each side. This unusual arrangement created a triangular seating layout that resembled the cockpit of a racing prototype or even a small aircraft. The concept was extremely advanced for its time. Decades later, central driving positions would appear in exotic supercars such as the McLaren F1, but the Manta had explored the idea many years earlier. Underneath the dramatic bodywork, the car used powerful mechanical components developed by Gito Bizzarrini. The chassis and engine configuration gave the futuristic machine genuine performance potential, even though it was primarily created as a design experiment. When the car debuted at the Turin Motor Show in 1968, it immediately attracted enormous attention. Visitors gathered around the display, trying to understand the strange wedge-shaped machine that looked like nothing else at the exhibition. Although only one example of the Bizzarrini Manta was ever built, its influence on automotive design turned out to be enormous. The extreme wedge styling became a defining trend of the 1970s and inspired many later supercars. Designers around the world began experimenting with similar shapes, leading to iconic machines such as the Lamborghini Countach and other dramatic wedge-shaped exotics that defined the era. The Manta itself eventually disappeared from the spotlight for many years, but the single surviving example was preserved and later restored. Today, it is recognized as an important milestone in automotive design history. When people see the car today, they often struggle to believe it was built in the 1960s. Its shape still looks futuristic, its interior still feels experimental,
and its bold styling still captures the imagination of anyone who encounters it. In many ways, the Bizzarrini Manta represents the pure creativity of automotive design. It was not built to satisfy market demands or production constraints. Instead, it was created to explore what might be possible if designers were free to imagine the future without limits. And even now, decades later, that future still seems to be racing towards us from the sharp nose of that extraordinary wedge-shaped machine.
Number 4. The Bricklin SV1 is one of the most fascinating and unusual sports cars ever produced in North America. When it appeared in the early 1970s, it looked dramatically different from almost everything else on the road. The sharp wedge shape, bright colors, and spectacular gull-wing doors made the car appear more like a futuristic concept vehicle than a production automobile. Yet behind the dramatic styling was a serious idea: creating a sports car built around the concept of safety. The project was the vision of entrepreneur Malcolm Bricklin, a man known for bold automotive ventures. Bricklin believed that sports cars could be exciting and visually striking while also placing a strong emphasis on safety, something that was becoming increasingly important in the automotive world of the 1970s. The name SV1 actually stood for Safety Vehicle 1. Unlike many sports cars that focused only on speed and style, the car was designed with several unusual safety ideas. The body structure included reinforced steel beams in the doors and a strong integrated frame intended to protect occupants in a collision. Thick, energy-absorbing bumpers and carefully designed crumple zones were also part of the concept. But the first thing anyone noticed about the Bricklin SV1 was its spectacular doors. Instead of opening outward like normal doors, they lifted upward in a dramatic gull-wing motion, similar to those seen on the legendary Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. When opened, the doors rose high above the roofline, creating a striking silhouette that immediately drew attention. Unlike the manual gull-wing doors of earlier cars, the SV1 used a complex hydraulic system to raise and lower the doors automatically. The idea sounded impressive in theory, but in practice it often created frustration. The system could be slow, temperamental, and sometimes unreliable. Drivers occasionally found themselves waiting impatiently for the doors to finish their slow mechanical movement. The body construction of the car was also extremely unusual. Instead of using traditional painted steel panels, the exterior panels were made from colored acrylic bonded to fiberglass. This meant the color of the car was built directly into the material itself rather than applied as paint. As a result, the cars were produced in several bright and highly distinctive shades, such as safety orange, bright red, and vivid green. These bold colors were chosen intentionally because they made the vehicle highly visible on the road, another feature intended to improve safety. Under the dramatic bodywork, the car used relatively conventional mechanical components. Early models were powered by V8s supplied by American Motors Corporation, while later versions used engines from Ford Motor Company. The engines provided respectable performance, although the car was never designed to compete directly with the fastest sports cars of its era. Despite the ambitious vision behind the project, the production process quickly ran into serious difficulties. Manufacturing a completely new car with unusual materials and complex features proved far more challenging than expected. The hydraulic gull-wing doors in particular caused constant headaches during assembly and maintenance. The acrylic body panels were also difficult to manufacture consistently, leading to delays and quality issues. These problems slowed production and increased costs, placing enormous pressure on the young company. Yet, even with its difficulties, the Bricklin SV1 remained visually unforgettable. Its low wedge shape and distinctive doors made it one of the most recognizable sports cars of the 1970s. Owners often remembered the car as a mix of excitement and frustration. One driver once joked, "When the doors went up and the sun hit that bright orange body, it looked like a spaceship, but sometimes you had to wait a while for the spaceship doors to open." Production eventually ended after only a few thousand examples were built. Financial pressures and manufacturing problems proved too difficult for the company to overcome. Today, the Bricklin SV1 has become a rare and intriguing collector's car. At classic car shows, it always attracts curious crowds who are fascinated by the unusual materials, the dramatic doors, and the bold colors that make it impossible to ignore. More importantly, the car represents a moment in automotive history when ambitious entrepreneurs still believed they could challenge the established giants of the industry with bold new ideas. The Bricklin SV1 may not have succeeded as a long-term production vehicle, but its daring design and unusual engineering ensured that it would never be forgotten. Even today, it remains one of the most distinctive and ambitious sports car experiments of the 1970s.
Number 6. The Zimmer Golden Spirit was one of the most visually outrageous and unforgettable luxury cars of the late 20th century. When it appeared in the late 1970s and early 1980s, it immediately divided opinions. Some people saw it as a fascinating tribute to the grand luxury automobiles of the 1930s, while others considered it wildly excessive, almost like a rolling piece of automotive theater. Either way, the Golden Spirit was impossible to ignore. The car was built by Zimmer Motor Cars Corporation, a company founded by entrepreneur Paul Zimmer. Zimmer believed there was a market for extremely distinctive luxury cars that looked like vintage classics but offered the reliability and comfort of modern mechanical components. This idea was part of a broader design movement that became known as the neo-classic car trend. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, several small manufacturers began building cars that deliberately imitated the dramatic styling of pre-war luxury automobiles. Among these, the Zimmer Golden Spirit became one of the most recognizable examples. At first glance, the car looked enormous and theatrical. The hood stretched forward for what seemed like an endless distance, giving the vehicle the exaggerated proportions of a grand pre-war touring car. Massive chrome headlamps sat proudly on top of sweeping fenders, while the tall vertical grille dominated the front of the vehicle like the entrance to a cathedral. Large chrome bumpers, side-mounted exhaust pipes, and decorative external spare tires completed the dramatic look. Every visual detail appeared intentionally oversized, as if the designers had taken classic 1930s luxury styling and turned the volume up to maximum. From certain angles, the car almost resembled legendary pre-war automobiles, such as the majestic Duesenberg Model J, although the Golden Spirit exaggerated many of these traditional elements to an almost cartoonish level. Yet beneath the flamboyant bodywork was something far more ordinary. Instead of using a completely custom chassis, the Zimmer Golden Spirit was built using mechanical components from the Ford Mustang. The chassis, drivetrain, and engine were supplied by Ford Runner Company, which meant the car actually had the reliability and serviceability of a mainstream production vehicle. However, the exterior transformation was enormous. Zimmer extended the body dramatically, adding a much longer hood and reshaping the car with massive fiberglass fenders and decorative chrome details. By the time the modifications were complete, the humble Mustang underneath was almost completely unrecognizable. Inside, the cabin aimed to deliver the kind of luxury atmosphere buyers expected from such an extravagant exterior. The cabin was filled with plush leather seats, thick carpeting, and polished wood trim across the dashboard and doors. Chrome accents sparkled throughout the interior, and many cars included elaborate analog clocks and decorative instruments that enhanced the sense of vintage luxury. The goal was to make the driver feel as if they were traveling in a grand classic automobile rather than a modern sports coupe. Because the cars were built largely by hand and heavily modified, the Zimmer Golden Spirit was extremely expensive. In fact, the price often exceeded that of many genuine luxury vehicles produced by major manufacturers. Yet the car still attracted a surprising number of buyers. The people who purchased Golden Spirits were usually looking for something completely unique. They didn't want an ordinary luxury sedan that blended quietly into traffic.
They wanted a car that would instantly draw attention wherever it appeared. And the Golden Spirit certainly delivered that experience. Driving the car often felt like participating in a parade. The enormous hood stretched dramatically in front of the driver, the towering chrome grille reflected sunlight in every direction, and pedestrians frequently turned their heads in surprise when the car passed by. One owner once described the experience with a sense of humor. You don't just drive it, you arrive in it. Because of its dramatic styling and unusual concept, the Zimmer Golden Spirit quickly became one of the most recognizable neoclassic cars ever produced. Even people who knew very little about automobiles could instantly recognize that it was something unusual. Today, the Golden Spirit remains a fascinating symbol of a very specific era in automotive design. During the late 20th century, when many mainstream vehicles were becoming more standardized and practical, a handful of companies chose to build cars that celebrated extravagance, nostalgia, and individuality. Whether admired as a bold tribute to classic luxury automobiles or criticized as an over-the-top styling experiment, the Zimmer Golden Spirit continues to stand out as one of the most dramatic and unforgettable vehicles ever created during the strange and colorful era of neoclassic cars.
Number 3. The Stutz Blackhawk was one of the most extravagant and theatrical luxury automobiles ever built. During the 1970s, when many car manufacturers were struggling with new regulations, rising fuel prices, and increasingly conservative designs, the Blackhawk went in the completely opposite direction. It was bold, dramatic, and unapologetically extravagant, a car designed not merely to transport its owner, but to make an unmistakable statement wherever it appeared. The car was produced by the revived Stutz Motor Company, a brand that originally gained fame in the early 20th century for building high-performance luxury cars and racing machines. After disappearing for many years, the name returned in the late 1960s when a group of investors decided to create an ultra-exclusive luxury automobile that would stand apart from the more restrained designs of mainstream manufacturers. To bring the project to life, the creators turned to Italian designer Virgil Exter, a man famous for shaping the dramatic styling of many American cars during the 1950s. Exner imagined a car that combined modern engineering with classic luxury styling elements inspired by the grand automobiles of the 1930s. The result was the astonishing Stutz Blackhawk. At first glance, the car looked enormous and almost theatrical. The hood stretched forward with dramatic length, giving the vehicle a commanding presence. The front grille was massive and covered in gleaming chrome, designed to immediately capture attention. Large headlamps, sweeping fenders, and sculpted body lines gave the car an imposing appearance that felt almost ceremonial. One of the most recognizable features was the external spare tire housing mounted on the trunk. This styling element was inspired by luxury cars from earlier decades, when spare tires were often displayed proudly as part of the design rather than hidden away. On the Blackhawk, this feature gave the car an old-world elegance, mixed with flamboyant excess. The bodywork was built with extraordinary attention to detail, and many components were handcrafted rather than mass-produced. Unlike most American cars that rolled off large assembly lines, the Blackhawk involved a complex international manufacturing process. Mechanical components were supplied by General Motors, while the body was largely constructed and finished by skilled craftsmen in Italy before final assembly. If the exterior was dramatic, the interior was even more extravagant. Opening the door revealed a cabin that felt more like the interior of a luxury yacht than a typical automobile. Soft leather covered the seats and dashboard. Deep carpeting lined the floors. Polished wood trim and ornate metal accents appeared throughout the cabin. In some versions, parts of the interior even featured gold-plated details. Everything inside the car was designed to create an atmosphere of opulence and exclusivity. Owners could request highly personalized interiors with unique materials, colors, and decorative touches. Because of the enormous amount of hand craftsmanship involved, each Stutz Blackhawk was extremely expensive. In fact, the car often costs several times more than traditional luxury vehicles produced by companies like Cadillac. Yet, despite the extraordinary price, the Blackhawk quickly found admirers among wealthy collectors and celebrities who wanted something more dramatic than the typical luxury sedan. The car's flamboyant personality made it a perfect symbol of success and individuality. Several famous figures were known to own one. Among them was Elvis Presley, who was famous for his love of extravagant automobiles. Presley reportedly purchased multiple examples of the Blackhawk, appreciating its bold design and luxurious interior. Another well-known owner was Frank Sinatra, whose taste for stylish luxury machines matched the car's glamorous character. For celebrities accustomed to attention, the Blackhawk provided exactly the kind of dramatic presence they enjoyed. Driving the car was a unique experience. Although it shared some mechanical components with American luxury vehicles, the sheer size and theatrical design made every trip feel like a special event. The long hood stretched far ahead of the driver, while the towering grille and sculpted fenders created the sensation of piloting something far more dramatic than an ordinary automobile. One owner once described it perfectly. Driving a Blackhawk didn't feel like driving a car, it felt like arriving. Because production numbers were relatively low, the Stutz Blackhawk remained an exclusive sight on the road. Seeing one glide past with its massive chrome grille and distinctive spare tire housing was an unforgettable experience. Today, the Stutz stands as a fascinating symbol of a unique moment in automotive history. While many manufacturers were moving towards efficiency and practicality, the Stutz project celebrated extravagance, individuality, and dramatic design. Even now, decades later, the car still commands attention wherever it appears. With its enormous proportions, glittering chrome, and lavish interior, the Stutz Blackhawk remains one of the most flamboyant luxury automobiles ever created, a rolling monument to the idea that sometimes more truly is more.
Number 2. The Panther Westwinds J72 is one of the most curious and charming automotive throwbacks ever produced. When it appeared in the early 1970s, the car seemed almost completely out of place in its own era. At a time when manufacturers were experimenting with wedge-shaped sports cars, futuristic interiors, and modern aerodynamic styling, this machine looked as if it had driven straight out of a black and white photograph from the 1930s. The car was built by the small British company Panther Westwinds, a firm founded by entrepreneur Robert Jankel. Jankel had a very unusual vision for the brand. Instead of competing directly with major sports car manufacturers, he wanted to create hand-built luxury automobiles that captured the romance and elegance of pre-war motoring while still offering modern reliability and comfort. That idea led directly to the creation of the Panther Westwinds J72. At first glance, the car looked astonishingly authentic. The long, sweeping hood stretched dramatically forward, giving the vehicle the elegant proportions of classic European roadsters. Separate, flowing fenders framed the wheels, while the headlights were mounted high on the front wings in a style that had largely disappeared decades earlier. One of the most distinctive details was the exposed spare wheel mounted along the side of the car. This feature immediately reminded enthusiasts of famous pre-war luxury machines such as the legendary Jaguar SS100. With its chrome accents, wire wheels, and graceful curves, the Panther looked almost like a perfectly restored antique rather than a newly built automobile. Yet the illusion disappeared the moment the hood was opened. Underneath the vintage bodywork, the J72 used modern mechanical components, including powerful engines supplied by Jaguar cars. Depending on the version, buyers could choose between different Jaguar engines, including smooth inline-6 units and even large V12 engines that provided far more performance than most genuine 1930s roadsters ever had.
This unusual combination created a fascinating driving experience. From the outside, the car looked like a delicate antique, but on the road, it performed more like a modern grand touring machine. The suspension, braking system, and drivetrain were far more advanced than anything found in the vehicles that inspired its design. The interior also blended classic style with modern comfort. The cabin featured polished wood trim, traditional round gauges, and thick leather upholstery that felt rich and luxurious. Chrome accents and classic switchgear reinforced the nostalgic atmosphere, making the driver feel as if they had stepped into another era. Yet the car also included conveniences that drivers from the 1930s could only dream about, such as reliable electrical systems, improved heating and ventilation, and far more dependable mechanical components. Because every Panther Westwinds J72 was largely hand-built, production numbers were limited. Skilled craftsmen assembled the cars with careful attention to detail, and buyers could request special colors, interior materials, and other personalized features. The result was an automobile that felt more like a custom luxury object than a typical production car. The J72 quickly attracted a small but enthusiastic group of buyers who appreciated its unusual personality. These customers were often people who loved classic pre-war cars but did not want to deal with the constant maintenance and mechanical fragility that genuine vintage automobiles sometimes required. One owner once described the experience in a way that perfectly captured the appeal. It looked like something that belonged in front of a grand hotel in 1935, but it started every morning like a modern car. Driving the Panther was an experience filled with theatrical charm. The long hood stretched dramatically ahead of the driver, the exposed spare wheel gave the car a distinctive profile, and the chrome details sparkled in the sunlight. Even when parked, the car looked like a piece of living automotive history. Yet, when the driver pressed the accelerator, the powerful Jaguar engine reminded everyone that this was not actually an antique. The Panther Westwinds J72 eventually became one of the earliest and most famous examples of what would later be called a neo-classic car. These vehicles deliberately imitated the appearance of much older luxury automobiles while using modern engineering beneath the surface. Although Panther Westwinds remained a small manufacturer and never produced cars in large numbers, the J72 left a lasting impression on enthusiasts who admired its unusual concept. Today, the car is remembered as a fascinating blend of nostalgia and innovation. With its sweeping pre-war styling, hand-built craftsmanship, and powerful modern mechanical components, the Panther Westwinds J72 remains one of the most charming and unusual automotive time machines ever created. Airplane.